Just give us a second for this.
What page are we on?
I have to ask what.
We're starting Job chapter 17, verse 1. We're starting
Okay,
at
that would
chapter
be
17.
page 1362.
And welcome everyone here and around the world to Torah Club on Wednesdays here in Topeka, Temple Beth Shalom. We're still in the book of Job, and we've got quite a bit left to examine. Where we are, we're picking up at chapter 17, in the middle, essentially, of Job's one of Job's responses to Eliphaz, the Temanite. And before we begin our study, we'll begin with the blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshana b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. If you say Amen, you get full credit.
Amen.
Amen.
There you go. And so we're beginning here, and immediately we have you all, I believe, have in your book the JPS translation. And so again, Job, like many of our more poetic works, they attempt to translate, but all translations are a work of artistry. All translations, the translation is not a science. You have to understand nuance and different things about language in order to make, in order to do a translation. We start out fine for the most. My spirit is crushed, right? Because we get that. My days run out, or my days, are dwindling. Which we also get, and then we get Kvarim li, which your translation, which I have up here as well, says the graveyard waits for me. Now, maybe that's artistic. I think that's a bad translation of what it's saying here. Because when you hear the graveyard waits for me, what do you think?
Die.
Right, he's like, okay, I'm gonna die. Which is, yes, true. And not conveying the full meaning that the commentators show us exists in the Gesundheit. Shows us exists in this verse. Kvarim is graves. A cemetery, right? A graveyard would be Beit Kvarim, right? Right? That's something like that. Sometimes we call it Beit Olami, right? Which is kind of like an eternal home, right? Like that kind of thing. There's a couple different names for cemetery or graveyard in Judaism, but Kavarim would mean there are graves for me, or graves belong to me, right? Graves are mine, right? Just like you say something shali, that thing is mine. The implication of graves are mine is that has been what he has reaped from the world. In other words, the graves of his, not just where he will end up, but he has seen in this tragic tale his children all predecease him. So this gives it the extra emphasis of that pain that he's trying to communicate. Or if you say the graveyard waits for me, that's very him focused, right? Which waits for me, okay, but that word's that's not there. So anyway, right. So that's where we are. Surely mockers is not machers, but mockers, keep me company. I guess you could say either one. No, I'm not sure these other people are machers, but mockers, right? This is their best work at saying, people who taunt him, keep me company. That's who's with me. And with their provocations, I close my eyes. Right. Even every time I close my eyes, it's just this, what they're doing to me is what is impacting me. And now Job has a request for God. and says, promise now, or, come now. Stand surety for me, or guarantee me with you, right? Be my guarantor if you won't assure my safety. Who will give a hand in my behalf, right? In other words, no one else is going to be his guarantor. You have hidden understanding from their minds. Still talking to.
Okay.
Well, yes, not.
Well, he's talking about the advisors that instead of keeping their mouth shut are busy talking.
Okay, it all worked out in the end. What were you saying, Sam? I'm sorry.
Well, he's talking about the quote advisors who are busy talking, and really they should sit and listen.
Yes. And they should sit and listen, sure. But that's not quite the whole picture, because it's not just that they don't get it. He doesn't say, oh, they don't understand. What does he say? You have concealed from Libam, from their hearts. He means minds, but you have concealed from them understanding.
He's talking to
Right?
and I at that moment.
But so they don't get it. But what if it's not just meaning they don't get it? What if it means what happened in Egypt? Let's go all the way back to Egypt. And there would be what? A plague would happen. Moses would do something and God would bring a plague upon the Egyptians. And what did God do to Pharaoh? Pharaoh wanted to let the people go. And then,
Disheartened.
right, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. God hid understanding, you might say, of the greater importance, and even that he had understood, like, geez, this is bad for my people. I should just get rid of these folks. But not having fulfilled the purpose yet, it couldn't be allowed. Now, we talk a lot here about how important free will is to God, not just from our perspective as individuals who desire to have free will. But in this case, there's a chance that these folks, there's not that they're being puppeted in some way, but that there's some aspect that they are. Would they be blameless for it if the understanding was hidden from them?
Was Pharaoh blameless for hardening his heart, or was that God?
No. Well, that's interesting. Was it? I mean, I guess not, but at the same time, an instrument of God for the purpose of divine revelation is kind of a tool outside all classification. It happens so infrequently and so specifically that it's kind of it breaks the rule, but who cares, so to speak, because you can't have a rule for such unique instances. But in any event, they don't understand. And says, furthermore, therefore, you must not exalt them. Right? They shouldn't be rewarded for this. Even if they're playing a role in your plan, they shouldn't be rewarded because of the pain that they've caused me, because of how they've been. This, I don't know if he means this about each of these friends specifically, or just about people like them, but he goes on to say, one informs on friends for a share of their property, and the eyes of one's children pine away. That's pine away. What are we doing here? I thank God I have the Steinsaltz commentary to give me a better translation. I would, it's like it's better than a Targum. To give me some context to help understand some of these maybe overly poetic verses. You know, and not just one that informs, but an informant, so to say, one who connives, one who schemes and plots. Right? What do? They report their friends. Um, the eyes of his children will, it says here, pine away, which I think is a really interesting. Tikalana is a really interesting word. Preparing an unrequited expectation. Um, perhaps they're. I mean, I don't know what it is to be a disappointment in the eyes of children. Not in general children, maybe I am, but in I not having children. But I mean, I think he's just trying to plumb to give words to the depth of his despair, of where he finds himself. I think that's what he's aiming for with these verses. Um, uh, Continuing in verse 6, God has made me a byword among people, right? Uh, I have become like Tophet of old. Um, and Tophet is a place that infamously consumed children. Um, but the commentators has this as I will be like one who is already in hell, essentially, one who is already suffering like a place where they would consign, sacrifice children into fire in the old days. Like that's essentially what he's saying. And of course, one thing that's true of this line, at least, he has actually even to today become a byword among the peoples of the world.
Mhm.
Nobody doesn't understand suffering in terms of Job. If you reference Job, pretty much everyone with any level of decent education will be able to tell you, ooh, if you said, I feel like Job, they would be like, ah, yes, I know that Eov, he suffers, right? So essentially, he became an avatar of suffering. Um, I hope I'm never an avatar of anything.
Agreed.
But certainly suffering is a bad one to be known for. My eyes, verse 7, my eyes fail from vexation, or my eyesight is dimmed from anger. Um, all shapes seem to me like shadows, or my limbs don't function. They're like shadows, and then I can't make them do stuff. They just appear, but I have no control over them. The upright, right, the Yesharim, are amazed or outraged at this. And the pure are aroused against the impious or the hypocrite. The righteous hold to their way, despite the retribution that descends upon the earth, and those whose hands are clean or pure will add strength or grow stronger. But all of you, come back now, right? So after he makes all these general comments, Job is now speaking back to his three friends that are in the room. But all of you, return, right? And come. I shall not find anyone wise among you. I don't need to explain that one to you. You can get that. He's calling them done. My days are done. It says tendons, but my tendons severed. Uh, the strings of my heart. Oy, no. Okay. My days have passed, my thoughts are severed due to all my pain and aggravation. They, my thoughts, are the inheritance of my heart. Read it that way.
Mhm.
Again, just translation that leaves too much interpretation left on the table. I don't know how you're supposed to understand the strings of my heart are the inheritance of my heart, the Morashe Levavi. Um, like the outcrop, the things that emerge from it in that times type of inheritance, the way children are an inheritance. They say, verse 12, they say that day is night, or sorry, I'm reversing it because I'm trying to look at the Hebrew and the English at the same time. They say that night is day. Meanwhile, he means here that his friends, or possibly the things tormenting him, or possibly his friends who are tormenting him, deprive him of sleep with all of their either his suffering or their arguing keeps him awake.
Is it not also possible that they can't really distinguish what's going on? The day is not day, it's night. Night is not night, but day.
Oh, that he might not, like his eyes have sealed over and
Well,
he
or
can't tell?
they are unable to make discriminations properly.
No.
No?
Because that goes to me. I think that goes to like saying that they've gone insane or something, right? Because like if they can't understand his suffering, that's an emotional failure that anyone who can still tell day and night apart can make. But failing to tell day and night apart is a serious like your brain doesn't work or God is messing with you to not be able to tell those things
But
apart.
it's a metaphor. You see things in one way, and it's absolutely not that.
Yes, you mean in the sense that saying they're just so everything they say is inverted from the truth or reality.
I think he's saying that because they're busy telling him he's a bad guy, and he doesn't even know why.
That could be. That could be. I think the commentators traditionally take it a little more literally, but I don't disagree that interpretation holds weight.
This is a very
No, you're right. It is.
section, and they don't point out that the children of sufferers oftentimes think it's their fault. I hate to tell you, since I see that all the time.
Yeah. And we also get here or karov, right? The light is close. Mipnei choshech.
Mm-hmm.
Approaching or in the face of the darkness,
Yeah.
up to the face, right? Mipnei, like panim, face.
Yeah.
Right. From the face or into the face of choshech, the darkness. If I must look forward to Sheol as my home and make my bed in the dark place, say to the pit, or I called to the pit, you are my father, and to the maggots I declared, you are my mother and my sister, as I live with them. And therefore, I guess the mother and sister eat his flesh, which is a really strange image we're getting here. Where then, in that situation, which you can't imagine, where then is my hope? And my hope, who can see it? Who can see hope for me? Right? Because, right, that's what the friends should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
They should be there to comfort him. They should be there, as from his perspective anyway, to be there to restore his hope. Instead, they're what? They're eating him like those maggots.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As for that hope, will it descend to Sheol? Shall we go down together to the dust? And this is despair, right?
Yeah.
This is meant to give
There's
voice to despair. Any thoughts on this? I mean, remember, I just want to remind you 17, since it was last week. That was much more defiant. That was much more his opening to the responses, you are dumb and you don't understand. And once again, if God were here, God would do a different thing, or God would, adjudicate this matter fairly, whereas you all aren't listening to me and you just keep telling me I must have done terrible things based on how terrible I've been punished. And that's, and then in 18 we get much more of a desolate, desperate kind of guy. A guy who is Gesundheit.
If you're truly in despair, even God can't help you. I mean, that's what they define it as in the Renaissance in various places. Despair is losing all hope that anything good can happen.
Right. And that's what he's kind of in this part where that's what he's talking about. Is in a way, he's saying, like, if his hope is also gone, if he's already in the dust essentially, and he also has no hope, where does that leave him?
Suffering and in pain.
Yeah. And it leaves him in a very dark dark place. Meanwhile, if you're the friends of Job, imagine you're one of these three people. Forget the stuff they've said even for the moment. You're one of these three people, and he says all of this about you. You're maggots. You are feeding on the dead. You are, you're tormentors who keep him awake all night. If you want to take mine more literal than Sam's metaphorical interpretation. How would you? I mean, you've been sitting with this. You left your house. You went and moved in with this guy for a week to take care of him. You tried to have a conversation with him that you thought you were being helpful, and this is what he says.
Well, he's saying you're preaching despair. You're not helpful.
Well, sure. He says you're not being helpful, but they think they are being helpful. No. I guess I'm just trying to get you in their headspace very briefly before Bildad the Shuchite's response, in which, quite frankly, once again, the friends are going to be pretty insulted by what Job has had to say, and they're not gonna. I mean, you would be upset too, probably, is an important aspect of understanding. And so we'll continue in verse or chapter 18. Then Bildad the Shuchite, Bildad HaShuchi, said in reply, how long? Ad Ana. Put an end to words and talking. Consider or contemplate, try and understand. Tavinu, right? Right? Like you must try to mevin, you must try to understand. Ve'achar, and after that, nidaber, we'll talk. Which is weird. The weird thing which the commentator notes also is he says ta'avinu, which would be y'all, essentially. It's the second person plural. So it's weird that he addresses Job in the second person plural because he's one guy. But so he does do that. Is interesting. Whenever you appear to be ready to conclude speaking, you begin a new topic. He's saying to him, right? When he's saying put an end to talking, like an end to words, that's what he means. And he says, think about what you want to understand, and then we're going to talk. And he continues, he says, why are we thought of like beasts, regarded by you as stupid. Right? Like, I mean, they're like, right? That's one of the first things you would say. None of you think of yourselves, not that you're not stupid, but none of you would come, no person would walk in and be like, well, I guess he's right. I must be really dumb. Like, like they're like, no, we know, you know us and we know you. We run in the same social circles. We're not like random people off the street. Like, we're not stupid. And you're, kind of accusing him of making ad hominem his rhetorical flourish, right? That he's just attacking them personally, not dealing with any of the arguments they've made. I think he also deals with the arguments they've made, but I think he, you know, um, look, I don't think there aren't any ad hominem attacks. I just think those attacks serve for us the purpose of helping us understand the where Job is and how he's doing in these trials he's encountering from God. So he's going to continue to attack Job. Right? You who tear yourself to pieces in anger, will earth's order be disrupted for your sake? Will rocks be dislodged from their place? What's he saying here?
You're going to disturb the natural order of things.
Yes, exactly. You're trying to ask that something that shouldn't be, that has never been, a special circumstance just for you. Out of all of human history and the relationship between humanity and God, right? And right, should the natural laws of the world be overturned for you? And furthermore, if you see rock, sur, the word is listed as sur. If you see tsur, which we often see tsur as like rock, Tsur Yisrael, rock of Israel, what does tsur mean in that context? Tsur means God, right? Tsur Yisrael is God, right? Rock of Israel. So if you take tsur in that context, essentially, will God be dislodged from God's place? Do you expect God to do things very specifically differently for you? Right? Gam or Rishaim Yidach. Below Yiga, right? Indeed, the light of the wicked fails. The flame of his fire does not shine. Again, now this is like he's like quoting, it's not our scripture, but like he's making a simple theology point. So if his light has failed, he's working backwards from this. The friend who's speaking works backwards from this thing, right? From this these sentences he's saying now. This is how he judges whether someone has been punished rightly. Right, if someone's been punished, then this must be, depending on how badly, this gives him the answer as to what that person must have done. He works backwards, which again is very much the theology of all of the friends. Working backwards from you have been punished, therefore, the worse you've been punished, the worse things you must have done. This is the kind of thing Judaism was brought to the world to erase from the world. This kind of thinking, this kind of inability to use your own God-given reason to move forward as a species, and to just say whatever happens must be ordained by God. That's a stupid person's theology, not a smart person's theology. Right? It ignores free will entirely. And that's what this guy does. The flame of his fire does not shine, right? He's wicked, his flame doesn't shine. Ah! I want to add to every one of these lines because they just sound so dilettantish and stupid and simple. The light in his tent darkens, his lamp feels him. His iniquitous strides are hobbled, his schemes overthrow him. Again, I'm not going to keep doing the laugh, but you get it. He is led by his feet into the net, like a buffoon. He walks onto the toils. He catches a snag on the roots of a tree or something. Or a trap. The trap seizes his heel. The noose tightens on him, right? Imagine a cartoon from a little thing from a tree, and they step in it, and it goes whoop, and he drags him up, right? He's a buffoon. Like, what do you think about that? We laugh at him, right? The rope for him lies hidden on the ground, his snare on the path, right? A righteous person would see it, but him, too bad and stupid. He can't see it. Yeah, right. So a righteous person would see it, not so much for him. Terrors, or possibly demons. Sidiv, they assault him on all sides from around him, and scatter his feet or send his feet flying. So it's again very cartoonish. In fact, again, I can use a cartoon reference like the last couple. Anytime you see, like, imagine like you Tom and Jerry or something, and Tom is doing something to Jerry, and then a train comes at him, and what happens? He goes, ah, but he doesn't move. His arms just go like this, right? His arms and legs go like this, but he's not actually making any progress, and it smacks into him. It's literally that. That's what that's what they're saying here, right? Right? He's terrified. He can't make any progress. He can't move anywhere. He's just flailing about. His progeny will be hunger, and disaster will be his wife. It says awaits his wife, but that's a really dumb translation. Because it doesn't say that. It says it also doesn't make sense because it has to poetically rhyme with the first one. If his children are the metaphor of hunger, then it's not that calamity or disaster awaits his wife. That's again stupid. I don't know why they made that translation. It is that it is his wife, but it's a metaphor. So I don't know why they're trying to be. I feel like they're making. I'll be honest, folks. I think that was a PC adjustment by JPS. In 2023's translation made a lot of PC adjustments to the Torah that not everyone's.
So you think it should be disaster is his wife?
Yeah,
Meaning she's a disaster.
to his side, right? Technically, it literally says that disaster or calamity is right by his side.
You mean look,
Litzal.
describing his wife as a disaster. She's a disaster.
Yeah, well, not that his wife is a disaster. Disaster is his wife.
Well, that's the same thing. All you did was turn them.
No, because it doesn't have anything to do with an actual individual human being. This is just, he is so terrible. He is so wicked and misguided and unable to see the world that
It's as
it's as if, right? It's as if he had a wife, that wife would be the feeling of calamity.
Was married to disaster.
Right, yeah. Not that his wife is disaster, not that the literal woman he's married to is disaster or calamity, but the idea of it is so close to him, it's
Yeah.
as if.
Well, that meaning is completely different from the English that we have.
Oh, what do you
It's
have?
like, no, I mean I have the
Yeah.
same English you do.
Oh, yeah. Disaster
I'm just
awaits his
saying
wife.
it sounds like he has a wife and she's about to face disaster.
Right.
Disaster
Well, that's
awaits
what.
his wife.
Right.
His wife is about to be to encounter
Again,
horrible
that's a
disaster.
change that I'm just pointing out that the Hebrew doesn't say that. Essentially, the Hebrew is trying to give you a metaphor, and it's trying to like give you a pronouncement about what's going to happen to his wife, which is out of place because that's not what the rest of this section is doing. That's why I brought it up and pointed it out because the section isn't about that. It's about him, but again, it's this simple thin theology of like the more wicked he is, the more this comes to be essentially. Continuing in 13, the tendons under his skin are consumed. Death's firstborn consumes his tendons. his branches, it says, but branches intended, I mean, I guess they're talking about like limbs, and it's not really limbs though, because they would have used a different word for limbs. It might be limbs or it might be tendons. I don't think tendons is terrible. They're trying, again, it's interpretation. They're trying to guess what the meaning might be, so they're throwing that out there. Um, in any event, all it means is that the angel of death will take his children. Which again happened to Job. So again, this is being used as proof text against Job. Verse 14, he is torn from the safety of his tent. Terror marches him to the king. But no, wait. Yeah. Yeah, and then they say the king that the terror marched him to is the king of demons, king of the underworld, whatever that means. Again, I remind you, these figures are not Jewish. So I wouldn't take their conclusions about the afterlife as proof of Jewish ideas about what the hereafter. But right, terror marches him to the king of the underworld. It lodges in his desolate tent. Or rather, she, his wife, who has become a widow. Sorry. Yeah, that's a better translation, I think. Will dwell in his tent without him. Right? So it lodges is really she lodges in his desolate tent with him gone. Sulfur, which sulfur destroys stuff, yes, will be scattered throughout his abode, or is strewn upon his home.
It also smells really badly.
It also smells really bad, yeah, and we don't want that. His roots below dry up, and above his harvest withers. All mention of him vanishes from the earth. He has no name abroad. And again, abroad, so the words here are al pnei chutz, so like on the face of far is literally what that would mean, like on the face of away, kind of, or towards away. Um, it, it doesn't have to be abroad. Really, it means like in the public square, not abroad. When we say abroad, it's like, oh yes, no one will remember Job in Germany. It's like, no, it means like out in the streets, out in the community, like that he lives in, not like far away, which no human expects to be remembered abroad, unless you're like some kind of high political leader or something. He is thrust in verse 18. He is thrust from light to darkness, and he will be banished from the world. He has no seed or breed among his people, no survivor where he once lived. Generations to come will be appalled at his fate, as the previous ones are seized with horror. These were the haunts of the wicked. Here was the place of someone who knew not God. And so his response essentially to Job is this long section of couplets almost of this will be, and this will be, and this will be, and this will be. And all of this will be for the wicked. And whose life sounds like that? Job's, right? Your kids will be taken from you. Your wife situation will be not good. You will be in desolate and despair and whatever. You're gonna die and leave your wife a widow, and she'll rattle around your tent, which will fall down. Because you have you couldn't keep it up. You have all this stuff. This sounds very much like what Job is going through, and so these friends are basically like, "Look, man, it doesn't take a genius who's read every book in the world to say." Boom to boom, right? Like if this is what's happening, and this is what we know, then very clearly you and us must be, you need to understand more about the world. Job, they are saying to Job, you need to understand more about the world in order to really understand how you have messed up.
Isn't before this, his wife says, "Curse God and die." She wanted to get it over with too. And he says no, I mean,
Well, yeah, at the closer to the beginning, yeah. It's put out there. By the way, they've all kind of put out there. Not that they think he should curse God, but they think he kind of already has. And they're like, at this point, this is all of this feels like a foregone conclusion to that. This is all going to happen to Job. And again, it's so interesting because who's talking the most about God and what God is and why God loves justice and why God shouldn't do what Job perceives as unjust? Job. Job is talking about God all the time in this book. And what do they say about him? This is the only part that bears no resemblance to Job. Part of why you know that they're wrong. Right? He said, what will they say about this person? These were the place that the wicked person lived. And this was that place of someone who knew not God. Lo yada el. Who doesn't know God.
and since this has happened, you, Job, don't know God.
They're saying, right, exactly. They're laying out this thing where they're saying all of these things are Job. But this last one I would say, isn't Job. Very much not. Job clearly does know God.
Mm-hmm.
He's just shocked and offended at what God is allowed to play out for him. But he very much does care about, believe in God. So if that's not true, it should prompt the friends to think what else about this situation might not be true. But they can't get there. They can't get there.
Well, they don't know the backstory.
They don't know. It's true that they don't know the backstory, but this is where I keep bringing up free will and human reason. At what point does it become their failure?
Well, they could have the free will to try to understand what Job was feeling and not be critical.
Well, and their reason, in their human reason, their God-given reason, they should have been able to see that this wasn't Job that this friend was describing. That just because he suffers doesn't mean he's a blasphemer or a denier of God or any of those things. But they don't have words for that theology, in which this could happen to him, but he could be not those things. Blasphemer, denier of all that.
They don't have words, or they don't believe that it could be anything else.
I say they don't have words when I mean that they don't have a frame of reference to understand it. Their theology doesn't allow for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's as incomprehensible if I said to you that Judaism was actually about how we can plant more trees. And you would say, well, hold on, Rabbi. Judaism likes trees. We got a whole holiday about trees. We should plant trees. Is that what it's all about? That sounds really thin and, I don't know, maybe stupid. It would be thin and stupid of a theology. Just as thin and stupid as these people's.
Mm-hmm.
And any amount of my using my reason, reading books, thinking about it, could teach me that that's not what Judaism at its core was really about. That it's about Jewish people interpreting the Torah, which was given to us, so that we could fulfill our vocation given to us by God of being a light unto the nations to bring about eventually the redemption of the world. That's a lot harder than trees. Takes more thinking, takes more doing, takes a lot more than platitudes and nonsense and giving $50 to JNF. Although I'm good for you I want you to buy trees in Israel. I'm good with that. But I'm just saying there's more than that, right? We even buy trees in Israel. We like trees. We're big on trees. But the religion is not at all about trees. Right? We can understand that because we are all living a deeper theology than that. But these guys aren't. That's what I mean when I say deep versus thin in terms of, right? We want our theology to be thick. We don't want it to be easily broken, even by the least amount of reason, which these guys, if they'd applied, would have been able to do. But they didn't want to. They didn't feel they needed to. And that's why I asked you, at what point does it become a sin almost on their part? All of this. At what point can they no longer be excused just thinking, well, we were trying to correct our friend. First of all, I already explained to you weeks ago that tochacha, rebuke, has to be offered in a very specific way. The way not to do it is to show up after Shiva and yell at the person who's in mourning. That's not a good way to do rebuke in Judaism. And the most important rule of it is it has to be offered in a way that the person you're offering it to can accept it. Part of that is not shaming them. Rebuke has this, we especially in English, it has this connotation of like being hit with a ruler or something. But that's not what it means in Judaism. If you do it that way, you're doing it wrong. These guys are doing it that way. They want to tell him he's wrong, and the way they're doing it is essentially by hitting him over the head.
Right.
But that's not the way we do it in Judaism. That's not efficacious. It doesn't work.
This is an interesting way to teach us that.
Yes, exactly. It is. I agree with you. Oh, let's see. Oh, the Kansas City Jewish Chronicle is going to be a monthly magazine starting this fall and not a weekly newspaper for anyone who gets the Jewish Chronicle out of Kansas City. Yes, I mean, it's tough. They also don't have a lot of material. It's hard. I should offer more articles and stuff. Anyway.
In your spare time.
Yeah.
How many synagogues are included in that in Kansas City?
The greater Kansas City area is basically just Kansas City plus St. Joe's, Emporia, and Topeka.
I mean, is that Reform only?
No, it's everybody. It's Orthodox. It's everybody. It's everybody. The Chronicle and the Federation serves everybody,
Okay.
including Chabad, Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, everybody. There's a lot more Jews in Kansas City than in these peripheral areas. And so they take articles from the Chabad in Lawrence, from us in Topeka, from the community, the other Jewish community in Lawrence. St. Joe's has a small, in Missouri has a small Jewish community. So those are really the bounds of the greater Kansas City area. There's about 15 synagogues, I would say, not including Chabad's, because those operate a little differently. I'm not sure which ones are synagogues and which ones are just like community centers or I don't know if the Chabad House in Lawrence, where the college kids go, counts as a synagogue.
Yes, it does.
Oh, well, no, I know they have a synagogue, but I don't know if it counts as like, I don't know if it's a synagogue in the same, I don't know if we would count it in the same way that,
Well,
that, it doesn't do what normal I don't mean that it's not Jewish, God forbid. I just mean they don't do what normal synagogue do. They do a very different thing focused around a student population. So is that a synagogue or is it a Chabad house, which is a different thing? I say it's the latter, but if they want to say it's the former, I'm not against it. Yeah.
Yeah, my experience with the campus Chabads is that they strongly discourage people who are
Community members.
over 30 or over 35 from.
Yeah, it really
it's
creeps
not
out
a
the
student thing,
18-year-olds.
It's an
right.
age
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you were 21 and not a student, they'd be fine with you being there because they don't care. It's an age thing because they
don't
they
recruit-
think
right,
young
yeah.
people don't want to be around old people, and so they're pandering to this.
Not just that, they do have.
prejudice.
As someone who's worked on a Hillel on a campus before, there are really creepy people. No, I'm not. There are really creepy people out there who shouldn't be in spaces that are loaded with 18 to 21-year-olds because they're going to make them really uncomfortable, which is going to make those spaces really unwelcoming to the people that they're there to serve. So I'm not at all. I wouldn't allow anyone over the age of 25 in there, and I wouldn't allow anyone who's a community member under 25 to come because I wouldn't want that's not a student, but that's me. They obviously they do things differently, and obviously they have their own community standards by which
But
they.
I mean, just because there's some creeps over 25 doesn't mean that everyone over 25 is a creep.
No, it doesn't
I-
mean that everyone over
I
25 is a
would
creep.
look at the individual and case and,
I wouldn't do that though as a campus person. It's not worth here's the problem. When you don't make rules general, then you have to apply them case by case, and that can be a lot more uncomfortable. Better to have a general rule that keeps the population where you want your population, especially in a college setting where you're not looking to involve other people. And make sure that your prime demographic that you're serving is comfortable. That's
where,
my
where were
that
you
would be
in the
my way. I was at USC. I worked at USC
in
Hill.
Los Angeles?
Yes, USC, University of Southern California. Um, and every one of these organizations has similar rules.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
Yeah.
What?
My
Sometimes
dad was
apart.
a Hill director too.
Oh,
Yeah. Back then, though, Jews didn't go to USC back then. No. They only went to UCLA back then. Now lots of Jews go to USC, but I guess they've had some, I don't know. Spielberg gave them a lot of money, so maybe they're kosher now. I don't know. I don't know. I worked there. But to be fair, my school was on the campus of USC. So my rabbinical school campus was right across the street from
it's right
USC.
next to USC.
Yeah, Hebrew Union College in Los Angeles is across the street from USC. And in fact hosts the Lachheim School, the School of Jewish Studies for USC, is taught by the faculty of my rabbinical school of Hebrew Union College for the most part, and a couple of USC's faculty as well. Anyway, so if you want to study Judaism in California, that's a decent place to do it, as I say myself. Okay.
Not if you're over 25.
Well, no, you can study if you're a student at HUC. You can be way over 25. We had classmates who were like in their 50s.
Are you serious?
At HUC, yeah. I mean, they didn't. I don't know if they got great jobs after ordination, but occasionally you get people who are going as a second career kind of thing, and they leave doing something in finance or education.
So when they
or something.
finish, the synagogues don't want them?
Sometimes they do, but I don't know. I don't have any numbers on that. I don't know. Depends on the person, I guess, but usually synagogues do want someone they can spend 30 years with if it goes well, not someone who's got a 10-year, if 15 years they're going to be 65, that or even less, that starts a different calculation of how soon do we want to go into search. But that's again a very inside baseball kind of situation. All right, we'll turn our truck all the way back around to Job.
Job gets another shot at it.
Right, yeah, as Job will now get to offer a reply. So we'll go back to chapter 19. And Job again is going to start with the same kind of thing. They're all this is why I keep saying they're talking past each other, because to me it sounds like that, because Job is going to open the same way he's opened the last two times. And the friends have also kind of opened the same way they have the last couple times. Before they make their own point, the friends start with, you don't know everything about the world. You really shouldn't say you can speak for God, and you shouldn't call us stupid. That's what the friends say basically every single time they start responding to Job. And Job every single time says, you guys are being mean to me. You're not being good comforters and friends. And you don't understand God or justice or the world. So this is why I say they're speaking past each other, because while we're getting good wisdom in the individual verses and how they help us think about things like teshuvah or the afterlife or any number of things are helpful to us as wisdom literature, they are for the most part talking past each other. The friends are not being convinced by anything and are not changing their language, and Job is not being convinced by anything and is not changing his language. Right? He's not saying, oh, you're right, I shouldn't say you're tormentors, I should just say you're doing the wrong thing. Because at the beginning he did do that, right? At the beginning they both gave a little more credit to each other. Just a little bit. But there was a moment where Job stopped and said, look, I know you guys are trying, you're just doing it badly. Let's try and see it the same way. And they were like, no, you're bad. And Job was like, well, then you know what? You're bad. You say I'm bad, I say you're bad.
Takes one.
Bad. Just everyone's bad. Right, yeah. It's like, okay. So now Job is going to come back and He's going to say, how long will you aggrieve my soul and oppress me with words? Time and again, or rather, ze eser pa'amim. So these 10 times, really just a phrase meaning, like if you were to say, oh, I walked 40 miles both ways, like when people talk about or uphill both, whatever. They're being facetious. They're exaggerating. So he's saying these 10 times. He means time and again. He means you keep doing this. You humiliate me, and are not ashamed to abuse me. But even more here, they're saying it's the translation is to estrange. You're not ashamed to estrange yourselves from me. In other words, you're so convinced you're right, you're willing to break our relationship forever just to say your piece. I think we all know people like this, although I don't think we like very many of them. Where it's like they're like, well, if it's the right thing, I'm gonna say what I'm thinking, and if you can't handle it, then we shouldn't be friends, whatever that person is. I don't think we like that person, but they exist. Lots of people think that's a good way to behave. And that's what he's saying his friends are doing. He's saying you really feel like you have to speak your truth to the world, but it's inappropriate in this moment. Um, and he goes further. He says, if indeed I have erred, my error remains with me. Right? In other words, he's saying any errors I may have committed didn't harm those around me or the world in general. And therefore, how much harm could I have done? He's like, okay, let me give you the idea that maybe I did some unintentional sin. I offered something the wrong way, or I said a curt word to someone when I should have been kinder, or I did, or not even that, because it didn't impact anybody, he said. I didn't say a sheyat. Well, he's not Jewish, so it doesn't. I didn't say but let's say he said something to the effect of like I didn't say the proper prayer after washing my hands after using the bathroom, right? And he's like, okay, I made a sin, but it only was between me and God. How did it get to this level, guys? How did it get to to this level of punishment without me harming a single human being or the world in any way? How bad could I possibly have been? Right? I think it's a smart approach to try and get through to them. To say, look, Newtniks, I would deserve this if I murdered people or hurt people or bought somebody's house and kicked them out into the streets or oppressed the widow or the orphan or the stranger, but I didn't do any of those things. You can tell because nobody's here accusing me of doing any of those things. So he's like, so why? He's trying to get them to ask themselves why. He continues, he says, though you are overbearing toward me, and you do tochichu, so this is again tochacha, this is rebuke. You rebuke me with my disgrace. Right? You keep saying, you have done this sin. We don't know what sin you did, but you've done a bunch of really terrible sins. But that's not how you offer rebuke. Rebuke has to be specific. Just to give you more about the Jewish concept of tochacha, of rebuke. Rebuke has to be specific. When you go to someone, you have to say, hey, my friend, can I please talk to you about something? And they say, yeah. And you say, this might be an uncomfortable conversation because I noticed you doing this thing. And I love you, and I don't I don't hold it against you, but I want you to turn back from the ways of the things you're doing that are bad. And even then, you're trying to walk them along that path so that you can get them. The point of rebuke is that they change. It's not so that you can feel good about offering rebuke. The rebuke isn't about you. In fact, you should want not to do it. That's the best person to offer rebuke. You still have to go through with doing it, You can't say, yeah, you know what, never mind. I love you, buddy. That doesn't work. You have to say, hey, friend, I noticed that you were doing scales in the marketplace and you slid one of those coins off at the very end. Saw it happen. Make restitution.
Or I noticed you were driving on Shabbos.
Yeah, it's not going to be a problem here, but
Yeah, I know, but
sure, yeah, you could say that, but yeah, sure, yeah. I saw you out the other day. You had your kippah on, and you were eating in this milchik restaurant, but it's not really kosher because they're open on Shabbos, and so you really shouldn't do that, right? But it's like it's about how you're approaching it and how you're approaching the other person. And that's what he's talking about here. He's like, right? He's saying, right, you're doing this, and we're almost done. We're almost done. We've got a couple more minutes. Just trying to get to the end of this section. But right, so he's trying to reproach him. And then he continues, he says, yet know then that God has wronged me and has thrown up siege works around me, has surrounded me with his trap. Right? Since you consider me exceedingly wicked and you judge me by my misfortunes, which you've already said is bad, you should know then that I'm not guilty. Which he's going to say again. He keeps saying it. He keeps saying, I'm not guilty. And they keep saying, when you say that, you're blaspheming. He's like, look, I don't know what to tell you. You keep telling me that I can't say this, but it's true. God has wronged me and has thrown up traps around me. He has caused all this to happen to me. I cry violence, but am not answered. I shout, but can get no justice. My way has been barred, and I cannot pass. Darkness has been laid upon my path. My glory has been stripped from me, the crown removed from my head. God tears down every part of me. I perish. My hopes are uprooted like a tree. God's anger is kindled against me, and I am regarded as a foe. Heavenly troops advance together. They build their road toward me. They beat a path toward me and encamp around my tent. My kin have been alienated from me. My acquaintances disown me. My relatives are gone. My friends have forgotten me. My dependents and maidservants regard me as a stranger. I am an outsider to them. I summon my servant, but he does not respond, right? He's like, who are you? You don't have any money. You're not paying. You just, hey, come. That's all right. No thanks. Right? I must entreat myself. I must myself entreat him, right? I have to plead to him. Even to recognize me. My odor is repulsive to my wife. Which is weird because that's not what it says. It says my spirit is estranged. Zara is estranged from my wife, which is what it says in Hebrew. So I don't really know why it says that. And then it says, I am loathsome to my children. Or my pleas are estranged from my children.
At this point, he doesn't have any of them. Just lost all of them.
Yeah, but he doesn't mean that specifically. He means for like the servants who grew up in his house at this point. He means like those he raised in his house as if they were his own. Is what he means. Even youngsters, and by that he means delinquents. This is like delinquent youths disdain me. When I rise, they speak against me. They say derisive things to me. All my bosom friends detest me. All my closest friends. Those I love have turned against me. My bones stick to my skin and flesh. I escape with the skin of my teeth. Pity me, oh pity me, right? Hanuni, right? Hanun, right? Right? And remember from the 13 attributes of God, Adonai El Rachum Vechanun, God, merciful and compassionate. Be compassionate, be merciful to me. He's saying. And he's saying this to who? Not to God, to his friends. Hanuni, Hanuni, Atem Re'i. Right? You are my friends. You are my neighbors. You are the ones who are close to me. For I have not done anything wrong, but the hand of God has struck me. Why do you pursue me like God? Right? He says, God oppresses me and you're oppressing me too. You see I'm suffering and all you do is add to my anguish. You malign me insatiably. It's not enough that I suffer in flesh. I should suffer in spirit as well, according to you. Oh, that my words were written down. Would they were inscribed in a record, engraved for all time. Good news, Job, on that front.
Yeah, you got it.
We did do that.
We
did do that. That did come true. Incised on a rock forever with iron stylus and lead. Right? If only my words would be recorded and remembered eternally. Indeed, they do. But I know, and we love this. This is one of those. Again, there are a number of funeral verses that come from Job, and this is right. The ani yadati goalo chai acharon al afer yakum. But I know that my Redeemer lives, and that God will stand in the last on the dust is the literal mean, but in the end God will testify to this after all has ceased to exist. This after my skin will have been peeled off, but I would behold God while still in my flesh. Right. So that could happen afterwards. He would rather face God now while he's still alive, so that he could return to something. I myself, not another, would do so. Would see with my own eyes, my heart pines within me. Which again is just weird because that's not the word. That's not the body part that's that's mentioned. It's not the heart, it's the kidneys, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but it doesn't matter. They're trying to give you the idea, like when they say kidneys, they mean like kishkes. They mean like I feel it in my gut, right? Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why, what you have on the screen is
Yeah.
very similar to here, but not identical. And I found this.
Yeah.
I just found two.
Yeah.
Line 20, verse 27 and verse 13 differ from.
A little bit, yeah, because
So-
this is 2023's JPS and yours is the one before that's
So this
JPS.
is the newer one, the revised.
This is a newer translation than yours, but it's still similar to yours because it's the same.
Very
It's
similar.
the same
I'm
translator.
just trying to figure out why there are these differences, but
Yours is the one that comes before this one. That's why yours is a little different.
so
'cause this one's
you think this
updated.
one's better?
I think technically this one's the best. This is Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz's
We're
translation.
using, we don't have it.
No, we have it. It's right here. We're
We
just
don't have it.
using the JPS because you have the JPS in front of you. So I put the JPS I have access to in the main column, and then I have the alternative
Or
less
you're
artistic.
doing
This translation is less artistic. It's more literal. That's why I like it. This is more of an artistic translation. It's good to have both, I think, to be able to understand the semantic.
So you
meaning.
have an account that gives you access to that online, is that it?
Everybody does. It's free.
It's okay.
Yeah. Everybody has access to this. Yeah. So okay. Right. So his kidneys are lost within him, is what it technically. My heart pines. My kidneys are lost within him. In other words, I can't even sense my own sense. I can't even sense my own gut. You friends say, how do we persecute him? The root of the matter is in him. Right. Right. And it's like you would say, right? How is it we that are doing the persecuting? He's the sinner. And he concludes in verse 29, be in fear of the sword. For divine fury by the sword will be iniquity, so that you will know that there is judgment. Shadud. And he's essentially saying something else. What else is he saying here? Yeah, this is where we're going to end, but what else is he saying here? Just to finish up. Not just know that there's judgment somewhere, but what's he saying? It's more of a wry smile kind of threat from someone who's already lost everything,
Watch yourself.
saying, "Hey, if this can happen to me without anything happening, it can happen to you too."
And the real judgment is from God.
Well, the judgment's from God in either event.
Right.
But they're saying, you all are here saying, oh, yes, it must be because he's a sinner. But he's like, hey, if something out here is broken, who's to say you're not the next experiment?
True.
And then all your friends will say, ooh, you must be a big sinner.
Right.
But you'll say, no, I didn't do anything. And then you'll be in my place. And I'll sit here and laugh. Right? That's what he's, right. He's like, oh, yeah. Big sinner, must be. You could have listened to me, though, he's saying, and I'd have told you that's not required. Anyway, thank you everyone online